Hey guys, I just wanted to do a example of how VORs are exactly used for navigation. So I'm going to do this on Flight Simulator, but before we head over there, I just wanted to show you exactly what we're going to be doing over here on SkyVector. So we're going to be flying from the Ona Air Park to Charleston's Yeager Airport, and we're going to be using the Charleston VOR as our navigation aid. So first off, you can tell this is a VOR because it has a circle with degree markings surrounding it, obviously 360 degrees. And actually, you can tell it's a VOR DME because it has a hexagon surrounded by a square, which is the signal for VOR DME. And DME just stands for distance measuring equipment. So once we tune to its frequency, it'll actually tell us how far away from the VOR we are. Anyways, so as you can see here on SkyVector, in order to fly directly to the Charleston VOR from Ona Air Park, we have to be flying at a course of 112 degrees. So that means that, first off, we're going to input the VOR's frequency on our nav comm box, so nav1. And the frequency for this is 117.4. Every VOR has a different frequency that transmits on, and it's usually found in the left side of the box. Actually, up here at the Henderson VOR TAC, you can see similar information. Okay, so once we've done that, we're actually going to head to our OBS indicator, which is this thing. Kind of looks like a directional gyro. And we're going to twist this OBS knob here on the left-hand side until 112 degrees is on the top of the indicator. So once we do that, we should see this needle right here either appear on the left or right of us, depending on which side of the radial we are on. So for example, if we take off, let's say we take off to the west and circle around and we tune to the VOR, the needle should be to the left of us because the radial itself is, well, to the left of us. So obviously it'll look something like this. And the other thing I'm going to do before I explain too much here and bore you guys is most airplanes have two OBS indicators and two nav comm boxes. And that includes the Cessna 172. So as you can see here, in order to fly directly from the VOR to Yeager Airport, we have to fly at a course of 82 degrees. So on our OBS 2, since we have two of these, I'm going to twist the OBS knob until 82 degrees appears above this arrow. And then, of course, on our nav 2, we're going to be tuned to 117.4. Okay, so I think that's enough explaining here. I'm going to jump over to Flight Simulator and give you guys a more clear example of how this works. So I'll see you over there. Okay, so here we are on the 172. We're on the runway here at Ona Air Park. So like I said, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come down to our nav1, which is the here in the Garmin GPS. It says VLOC, so that's VOR or localizer. So like we said, the frequency is 117.4. So actually, let me. There we go. Let me select nav. So it's going to be 117.4. And we're going to activate our nav1, and immediately you can see this OBS indicator light up. This one actually gives you a glide slope for an ILS approach as well. But immediately you can see this indicator light up. So we're currently facing west, and like I said, we're supposed to be heading towards the 112 degree radial, which actually, let me set that up before I go any further. Okay, so you actually see we are slightly to the right of the radial, but once we take off and get on course, our goal is to make this needle centered. Each one of these notches represents 2 degrees, so we are almost 2 degrees off of the 112 degree radial of the Charleston VOR. The other thing I'm going to do is come down to nav2 and also set that to 117.4. And also activate nav2. So the reason why I'm doing that is so once we cross over the VOR, instead of quickly having to change this to 82 degrees, we can just track it on the secondary OBS indicator down here. So like I said, it's going to be 82 degrees, right? So once we cross over the VOR, our goal is to have this needle centered, and the indicator should say from. Okay, I think that's enough talking for now. So I'm going to get in the air, and once we get there, I'll show you what I mean. So see you in a little bit. Okay, so we're in the air now, and as you can see, we're still to the right of the needle. So what we're going to do is, completely ignoring this GPS, by the way, because that's kind of cheating, we're going to make a left turn until that needle is centered in the OBS indicator. So as you can see, we're about 4 degrees turning into 3 degrees off of the radial, and once that's centered, we're going to make a right turn until we can kind of gauge where that needle is going to be centered. So we're about now approaching 2 degrees. And if you can cross-reference it on the GPS, it shows we're getting really close to the radial. You can see there on the magenta line. Okay, that's about 1 degree, so I'm going to slowly do about a 10-degree turn so we can get right lined up with that needle. And now the sun's in my eye. Going to be heading to an altitude of 3,500 because we are going east and we are VFR, so we add 500, by the way. Also, one thing you want to do is make sure we are set to nav mode and not GPS mode. If it's set to GPS mode, it will not track the frequency. Okay, so we are about centered, so we're going to turn to a magnetic heading of 112 degrees. But once we do this, what you're going to see happen is we're going to fly this heading for a while, and then we are going to drift one way or the other. And that's just simply because of wind. Now, if this were a real flight, of course, we would have planned with a E6B, got our wind correction angle and all that jazz, but I just loaded this up, but just to kind of demonstrate how wind can affect your track on the VOR. Yeah, I didn't calculate a wind correction angle, but anyways, you can see we're a little bit past 112 degrees, but we are almost dead center on the radial. We're actually drifting to its right a little bit, so that's eventually that's going to prove my point. So this is taking us directly to the Charleston VOR. So we'll fly this for about 17.4 miles, and after that 17.4 miles, we'll be directly over the VOR station. Real quick, something I didn't really explain. So I think I mentioned anyway, that Charleston's VOR is a VOR DME, and DME stands for Distance Measuring Equipment. So I turned my DME receiver on, and down here on the second radio stack, you can see that we are almost 16 and a half nautical miles away from the VOR. And it also shows us which course we need to fly in order to head towards that VOR. It's also actually giving us a magnetic heading, or a bearing, I should say. But I'm going to level off here at about 3,500, and I'm going to skip forward until we're almost over the VOR. So I'll see you then. Alright, so we're about 12 miles from the VOR, and something I wanted to demonstrate. The wind has blown us to the right of the radial a little bit, so you can see right here we're almost a degree off. So that's just kind of how I wanted to demonstrate how, as you're flying along these courses, you'll often end up doing a zigzag pattern trying to stay centered on the radial. But that's completely normal. And like I said, if we did proper flight planning, we would have calculated our wind correction angle, so the zigzags wouldn't have been as quite dramatic as they would be if you're doing what I'm doing. The other thing I just wanted to reiterate is, as you can see here, we're heading toward the 112 degree radial. So the default GPS map doesn't show the what's it called? The default GPS map doesn't show the headings. There we go. The degrees around the VOR. But if it did, it would show the 112 degree radial over here. As you can see, we have the 2 arrows, so we are heading toward the 112 degree radial. Inversely, we could, inversely we could do the the inverse of the 112 degree radial. And if we tune to that, it would say we are 10 miles from that radial. And I'll have an example for from once we go over the VOR. So yeah, I'll cut back once we're almost there, and I'll see you then. Alright guys, so we are less than 2 miles from the VOR. As you can see, the needle is drifting pretty heavily. So what should happen as we go pretty much directly over the station is the needle will probably flip out a little bit and turn around, and then it should say we're heading away from the 112 degree radial. So yeah, we're about 1 mile away now. As you can see, it's getting increasingly harder to stay centered on the radial. It's moving around a lot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep my present heading, and then once it flips around, you'll see that the arrow switches to from. So we're about half a mile away now. By the way, my house is down there somewhere. Okay, so it's almost completely shifted to the left now. And there we go. See, it flipped out. So now it says we're heading away from the 112 degree radial. And like I said, now what we're going to do is we're going to turn to the left until we get, look at here on our OBS2, until we're centered on 82 degrees. So it should say we're heading 82 degrees away from the VOR. So again, the 82 degree radial is this way, and since we're heading away from the radial, it'll say from, because the VOR is behind you. I hope I explained that well enough. But yeah, we're gonna still keep coming left a little bit, and that needle should begin to center down here. As you can see, it's starting to move already. And we're gonna let that, so that now it's 4 degrees away. So I'm gonna slowly do a shallow bank to the right so we can get lined up right on 82 degrees. So looking at our directional gyro, and there we go, 82 degrees. Okay, so this should take us directly, or almost directly, to Yeager Airport. And as you can see, there it is right there. I kind of cheated because the Charleston VOR is only 9 miles away from the airport, but that's just to show you, give you an example of just how you can navigate with these. In real life, people do cross countries over several miles using different VOR stations, just tracking those radials. And but yeah, I hope that was a pretty good demonstration of how exactly VORs work. Yeah, my house is over there, and there's my high school. Anyways, hope that helped you guys.